A dark foreknowledge separated her from all of whom she was the star and stay, too great to impart the peril and the pain. In her torn depths she kept the grief to come. It was Savitri's greatness that she, the immortal, accepted the lowly mortal state, the lowly mortal birth. That was her greatness. She came to live with grief. She came to confront death. She came to remove the obstacle that was standing across the way of a divine manifestation. She came here into the mortal world to remove what causes difficulty to the mortal world in its progress towards the spiritual possibilities. The way of divine manifestation here in the mortal world, here on the Mrityu Loka, the way on the mortal world, on the Mrityu Loka, has to be cleared of the obstacles standing in its path. Obstacle standing in the path of a divine manifestation. Savitri came. She accepted the mortal lot. She came unlike the omniscient goddess who thought things were ready for her presence here. That she could accomplish the task of dissolving the difficulties we should come in the way of the spirits working here. The omniscient goddess thought that the difficulties would vanish the moment she would come here, but it was not to be so. She at once recognized the fact that the only way is working through the process of mortality. The omniscient goddess thought that the only way is to work through the process of mortality by directly and fully entering into it, into the mortal world. Therefore, the omniscient goddess, she withdraws, but she withdraws to come back as Savitri. The omniscient goddess comes as Savitri. She takes the mortal birth. Things were not ready for a direct action of the omniscient goddess. They had to be made ready by an occult process, by the yoga tapasya being carried out by the divine incarnate himself. The divine incarnate must do the yoga tapasya on the mortal world, Mrityu-loka, and prepare the ground necessary for the work of the omniscient goddess. The Supreme, the incarnate Supreme, he comes here, the Supreme comes. He establishes his living, dynamic presence in every nook and corner of this cosmic wideness. World after world experience the power of a consciousness that would change everything. The Supreme comes as Ashwapati. He comes as Ashwapati and prepares the Adhara Bhumi, the supporting ground for the work of his consciousness force, for the work of Savitri. He comes as Ashwapati and prepares the ground for the work of Savitri. World after world world after world experiences his presence, and it is that presence of his which becomes the Adhara Bhumi, the prepared ground for the work of Savitri. That is a long and enduring preparation for the arrival of Savitri. She comes to share the suffering of the mortal creature. She comes here to participate in the lot of the mortal. The divine Savitri, the omniscient goddess, takes the mortal birth. She comes here, but she is caught here in the network of mortal destinies. She has to enter into the network of mortal destinies. Without that, the lot of mortality cannot be changed. She is caught in the workings of fate and time and chance. She is caught in the furrows of ignorance and death. She is caught in the gin of earthly providence. She is caught in the snare, in the trap, in the noose of chance and circumstance and hazard. Peril and pain become her companions. Savitri has to pass a severe test. She has to pass through the ordeal of life, life in the hands of death. She has to undergo the fire test. She has to pass Agni Pariksha. Savitri is a princess belonging to the kingdom of immortality. That is her native right, the kingdom of immortality. She is the princess there in those golden realms. She is the possessor and enjoyer of inborn felicities. But she has plunged with her full commitment into the abyss of death. This is the self-chosen fall, and it is this fall which makes her greater than what she was in her native land. By choosing to fall, she has risen to a higher world in her own kingdom. Her greater than what she was here. She was in a native land of truth and light and force and joy. It is this fall which makes the destiny yet greater. Savitri's destiny becomes greater because of this fall, because of her accepting the mortal world, of entering into the mortal process. That which is missed by the gods who choose to remain in their own bright worlds of contentment, Savitri is not going to follow their path, the path of those gods. The gods miss the possibility of progress in the widening dimensions of the growing spirit because they remain stuck to their types. They would not experience the fate of mortal creature. They would not experience the fate of the mortal, and therefore not only do they miss something, they cannot really grow, they cannot really progress. It is by the sacrifice of their state that they can march on the path of destiny's endless fortunes. Savitri has chosen to do that. Savitri has done that. She has made the sacrifice of her princessly state, and that is why she is more endearing to us than the gods. By this choice Savitri has made, by this fall, she is going to rise to greater and greater heights. Savitri has already the knowledge of the impending death, which no mortal soul has, the impending death of her husband. It is with that foreboding knowledge that Savitri has taken this human birth on earth. Her foreknowledge is of a severe kind, of a very harsh nature, very ruthless in its operation. It is too great to be shared with anyone else in this mortal world. The pain and the peril are too intense, too harsh for a common mortal to bear in a small, palpitating, trembling heart. Savitri kept the knowledge of the death of her husband entirely to herself. The knowledge of the death of Satyavan. What capacity to hold that knowledge entirely to herself. What pragmatism also. Sharing the knowledge should have proved counterproductive. It would have been, in fact, preposterous. There was a kind of occult imperative for none else to know about this event, about the death of Satyavan. Not only that, it had to be absolutely in a far off lonely place where there wouldn't be any human interference, any human involvement. In fact, interference or involvement of man would have been hazardous. It was strictly a rendezvous, a confrontation between Savitri and the god of death, the gods above and nature's soul below. Yes, the gods above and nature's soul, the soul of nature below. They were the only spectators of that mighty strife, the strife between Savitri and death.